Buenos días, buenas tardes. En este video vamos a realizar, de parte del equipo número 5, conformado por María Camila Tonusco, Juan José Arango, Nicolás Bedoya y mi persona, Diego Alejandro Montenegro, se va a realizar la presentación de la práctica de laboratorio número 3, aplicación del Smith Predictor en la planta de frecuencia. Bueno, primeramente vamos a MATLAB, donde vamos a mostrar cómo se diseñó el controlador y la comparación del Smith Predictor en simulación. Primeramente pues, se obtienen los datos, se obtiene la caracterización de la planta con K, teta y tau, luego el tau criteria o C30 criteria para hallar el tiempo de muestreo, con un tiempo de muestreo de 0.2 segundos que encuentra un equilibrio entre el número de polos, debido a que tenemos mucho delay en la planta, más o menos 5 veces el tau. Eso significa que nos da muchos polos. Entonces, primeramente lo pusimos de tal manera que no tuviéramos tantos polos, sin embargo, pudiéramos obtener un buen diseño, o por decir más bien, que muestre correctamente el comportamiento de la planta en tiempo discreto, con un 0.2 obteniendo 7 polos. Luego pues, realizamos Ultimate Gain y Reaction Curve, obteniendo pues, las siguientes dos gráficas, siendo el azul Reaction Curve y el rojo Ultimate Gain luego de ser sintonizadas. Lo que podemos pues, extraer de estas sintonizaciones es que se obtuvo una mejor sintonización para Reaction Curve y por último pues, se realizó Pole Placement. ¿Qué sucede con Pole Placement? Al realizar Pole Placement la planta se vuelve inestable, y esto sucede debido a que Pole Placement es un método de control o de diseño de controlador muy agresivo. Entonces esa agresividad en el controlador hace que tengamos en el bode, pues nosotros en nuestra planta tenemos un margen de ganancia muy pequeño, de apenas 3.6 decibeles. Eso significa que cualquier ganancia por encima va a inestabilizar el sistema, por lo que Pole Placement no se vuelve una buena opción de control o de diseño de control. Por último, podemos, luego de seleccionar Reaction Curve, se simula el comportamiento de Reaction Curve sin el Smith Predictor, y aquí estamos simulando el Smith Predictor. Lo que obtenemos de resultado de esto es, de la gráfica amarilla, viene siendo la salida de la planta controlada con Reaction Curve sin Smith Predictor, simulada con el tiempo continuo de la planta. Y el azul viene siendo la simulada del Smith Predictor. Lo que se puede ver acá es que el Smith Predictor en realidad está teniendo un comportamiento peor que el PID de Reaction Curve sin el Smith.
So now we apply the controller with the help with the Arduino software. Then Reaction Curve. This is the result. Just apply the same parameters that we get in the MATLAB. The yellow one is the control action, in the blue one is the output of the plant.
As you can see, it's oscillating, so the calculation is
Not good. So now we are the tuning. So before tuning, we have three principal things. The first one is that the band that it just ignore the tiny errors. The second one is the rate limiter that just smooth out the output and say how much per cycle can change the control signal. And the last one is the gain scale that adjusts the overall aggressiveness. So now we will say the behavior. So the yellow one is the control action, and the blue one is the output of the sensor.
so as you can see, the control signal is way better right now, and the oscillations are reduced considerably comparing it to the last iteration with the values from the lab. So the step input that was applied here was of 40%, and as we can see, the value here is of 1.32 volts, which is actually the 40% of 3.3 volts. So we can see that the error is almost zero, or can be zero even. So yeah, we can see now that the controller was successful. Okay, now here we have the Smith Predictor applied to the PID controller without the filters and without everything done to the PID controller for it not to be saturated. So yeah, we're going to see the behavior right now.
Here we have the same set point.
It's 40%, and we can see here we have like the digital behavior of the Smith Predictor, and you can see it's not saturated and it follows the same behavior as before. Okay, now that the filters and limiters are applied, such as the deadband, rate limiter, or gain scale, are applied to the Smith Predictor and the output of the control signal, we can see that the behavior changes. And we'll see right now how it changes. So yeah, you can see now the behavior of the controller is not so noisy, and yeah, you can see that it matches. It still oscillates a little bit, but it has a better behavior than before. So here we can see how the system responds to a change in the step input. Before, the set point was 30% and now it changed to 40%. So okay, so now we are in the 30% set point, and we're going to change to 40%. This is the Smith Predictor. So now it changed. And now it reached 40%. We're going to see that. And indeed it reached 40%. So now we will see the effects of disturbance in the system. So it's a negative disturbance, and as we can see, the control action is going upwards to compensate for the disturbance, and the steady state value is kept the same, and it didn't change. So we can say that the controller manages the disturbances in a very good way and successful way. Okay, so this is how the Smith predictor with the controller manages the disturbances. So there is the disturbance, and as we can see, the steady state value remains almost the same or the same, and also the disturbance was negative, so the control action has to be positive to compensate, and yes. Please.
The result obtained after the experiment of having another state going different from the characterization, which was 3% compared to characterization of 40% step, where that in the reaction curve controller we obtained a more robust response. However, there was a small steady state error, which meaning that it didn't fully reach the reference. In the Smith predictor, however, we obtained a much faster response, but it had a little bit of overshoot. In the disturbance test, we tested with a -1 volt disturbance in a 40% step. We obtained that in the reaction curve, there was a slower and damp rejection of the disturbance. However, it left a small error during this disturbance. In the Smith predictor, we found that the rejection of the disturbance was faster and more effective. However, since we depend solely on the model plan, it was also more sensitive and it tends to overcompensate sometimes.